Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of the Trademarkroom's podcast. My name is Michael Coyle. I'm the owner and founder of the Trademarkroom, which is owned and powered by Laudit Solicitors. In this week's edition, I wanted to explain to you all what intellectual property is, that area of law that I specialise in. And I thought I'd simplify it in a way that I think works. And I think once you get my explanation, then you will be able to categorise and decide on the particular type of IP that would suit your business. So intellectual property, IP, is really aimed at the creatives and all businesses really are and essentially intellectual property. So no matter what business you're in, when you come to sell your business, you're going to be selling the IP. And in this day and age, 2025, is the most valuable aspect of any business. So, imaginary piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of that piece of paper, and on the left hand side, call it registered rights. And on the right hand side, call it unregistered rights. And we'll put a category into each box so that at the end of this podcast, you will understand exactly what your business consists of. Your business will consist of the registered and the unregistered. And imagine that when you come to sell, both the registered and unregistered assets will sit in this imaginary filing cabinet or box, and you'll be handing that over to a potential buyer for £1 million. So, what are the registered and what are the unregistered? Let's deal with the unregistered first. And when I say unregistered, what I mean by that is that there isn't a government process or method to go through to obtain a certificate. I'm going to tweak that slightly when I come on to list what the unregistered aspects are. As you'll see, there's a little bit of a contradiction in what I've just said. But generally speaking, the unregistered are as follows. If you decide to form a company through Companies House, usually through Cardiff, that limited company is unregistered. But by its nature, you're registering a company, but it isn't a registered right. It's just a company that you've created. And that falls in the unregistered category. Attached to that unregistered is a domain name, your website, all your customer data, your copyright code if you've created the website yourself, or if you paid for the website, the front end. And all that consists of your unregistered. Your company registration, your company name, your domain name, your customer data, your data protection, registration, your website. Those would be considered to be unregistered. Hugely important. It's the foundation of any business. The company name, the domain name, your data, your website. All those no one can do without if you're going to run a successful business. And your data is hugely important because that's what drives the business, that's what's going to generate revenue. Your data, it really is important. And in other podcasts, we'll look at how important data is. I do a lot of work with data. It's nothing to be worried about or get too excited about. It's very important though. So that's the unregistered. Your company name, your website, your domain name, the copyright, the code, front end, back end if you've got a license with your web developer. And that all becomes yours as part of that foundation of your business. Now turning to the registered, The registered rights grant you a monopoly. You'll be the only person allowed to use the registered rights. So the three main registered rights are a patent, which is an invention, which you have for 20 years, and it's a valuable asset. The second is a trademark. The trademark is the identity of the business. Often it's the same as the company name, jumping back to the unregistered, but it doesn't have to be. The company name can be different from the trademark. The trademark is the identity of the goods and services for which you're using the business for. So every walk down the high street, every type of well-known brand has a registered trademark. That's its identity. And you associate the goods and services to that particular brand. It's hugely important. A trademark is, to my mind, and the domain name, probably the most important aspects of any business. The trademark and the domain name. Without either, yes, you can still trade, but you're always relying on your unregistered, your company name, a diluted domain name, a hyphen in the brand, and or you're open, you're vulnerable. Whereas if you have the registered trademark, you've secured that name. When I launched Laudit Solicitors, I filed a trademark in 1999, I think. And we didn't launch the business till 2001. And there was a company, Price Waterhouse in Australia, was using the domain name and using the trademark. So it was a bit of a rush to get the trademark registered in this country. And we did, and we secured it, and then we launched the Laudit Solicitors brand in 2001. The trademark room came later, but again, I wanted to secure the trademark, and I've got a trademark now throughout the EU, UK, USA, I believe, and Australia, I think, perhaps. So the patent, the trademark, and also finally is the registered design. So that's the look and feel of the product, how it literally looks. They're the three core registered. They're the three core registered intellectual property that you need to focus on. For this particular podcast, I'm keeping it quite general. In podcasts in the future, we will hone down on obviously trademarks because of the Trademark Room podcast. But I think I wanted to show and highlight to you exactly the importance of making sure that the registered and the unregistered sit together quite comfortably on that piece of paper. So you know exactly that the company name, the domain name, the website, the copyright, any drawings, any artwork, all that sits as unregistered, and the data is all unregistered. Hugely important, owned by the company. If you're a sole trader, owned as a sole trader. If you're a partnership, owned by the partnership. But generally speaking, for the purposes of this cast, it's the company. All owned, massively important. It's the foundation that's going to build the house. And then we look to registered. If it's an invention, and we'll deal with patents later on in other podcasts, but if it's an invention, the patent is essential. But for the purposes of this discussion, the trademark, the identity of the business, which complements the unregistered, and it's the icing on the cake, it's the cherry on the cake, it's the part of the business that without securing that trademark, you're going to find it difficult. And the significant value in the trademark, the significant value in the unregistered, and that's by when you separate that and then you put it into the imaginary box, you'll be handing that box to a buyer for £1 million and say, here's all my intellectual property. There isn't really anything else in any business. When you're doing the due diligence and you're buying and selling the business, that's what you will be disclosing. That's what the buyer's solicitor will want to know. Of course, there'll be the employees, there'll be leases, there'll be health and safety, and there'll be policies, etc. But that's all pretty much window dressing. It's the registered, it's the unregistered. Again, I repeat one final time, the registered is the patent, it's the trademark, it's the registered design. All processes which you need to undertake through a government agency, pay government fees and pay lawyers' fees. And then the unregistered, everything that's been created, but you don't have to pay anything for, apart from the company's house to register the company, £65 for data protection. Everything else is what you pay your provider, your website creator. But that is all unregistered, and that's what sits and complements the registered. Okay? All the best to you, and I will see you next time. All right, cheers, bye-bye.